Okay, we're up to end of Sif Aleph, Simon Beis, Sif Aleph. And we spoke of it, just got late, but I explained a very interesting halacha that even nowadays, a Bezdin has a right to punish someone severely. And if they do things that are, there's a chuvas. There's a chuvas of what's his name, of Maram Mablin. I don't know if I mentioned it here, but I'll mention it again. There was a guy who murdered someone. So they questioned how to punish him. So the Rabbi of his city wanted to cut off his tongue, cut off his legs. You know, like in the story of the son of Toikif. You know the story of the son of Toikif? Yeah. So the Maram Mablin says, don't do that. Oh, he also wanted to poke his eyes out. The Maram Mablin says, don't do that. Kill him. He says, because you keep him alive, he's going to get to the government, he causes trouble, just kill him. See, those days, the Banamara Koyach and the Jews were segregated, and there was a guy who just didn't wake up, for some reason didn't wake up, didn't have a coroner's office, and but the reason this was done, he was a murderer. And they had a koyach to do this. Like I mentioned last week, the Chuvas Rosh, where the Rosh says to the Rabbanim in the town that there was a lady, a beautiful lady, she was Mazana. She was Almana, and she, people saw people coming in and out of her house. So he said, cut her nose off. It ain't going to happen anymore. They had a right, they did this. There's no smucha. But the Rosh says, that to kill someone, to do severe, you need a g'doy lador to be masking. Make sure, because young people can get hot-headed, they... Say
about for cutting noses, that you don't need that?
Also probably. But, young people could be, how's it called, the Salem witch hunt? What was it called? It's the famous witch hunt. But, a molester, no. Molester, you could do it yourself. If a guy molested you, you're first hand, if you know for sure he molested you, just shoot him. But how do you know it's true? Once it's established it's true. This is because they are oidif. Well, right, but you should go to the police. You don't need anyone's permission to go to the police. You don't need anyone's permission. Okay. So that's Sifal. It's a big chiddush. You know, in Chosh Mishpat, there's a very big chiddush. The Bezdin has such a koyach. Now the question is, it's very, There were, I'll tell you, I could say the story. There was a guy many years ago here in town who he had an affair, and his brother-in-law hired a private detective, and there are pictures, the picture holding a lady's hand and eating a restaurant. So there was 3 Rabbanim here, wanted to put him into Chedem. I said, who in the world do you think you are? Yeah, you have pictures, so maybe he held his hand. How do you know there's having an affair? What do you know exactly? You know what I mean? You can't know for sure, How do you know? The end was that the end was the made shalom, the couple. You know what I mean? But the person doesn't, you have to be g'doy lador to do such. Or, we'll soon see later, the Moshe says over here, a very interesting thing. Now let's do the next one more. Chei nahagen, mechol mukoim, the meaning is all places.
The last line of the small lines.
Chei nahagen, mechol mukoim, she toiver ir. Toiver ir means 7 council members. Be'iram kebezdin agudel, imaken, the onshin, they punish and they make See, you have to remember something. I want to tell you something very, very important. I see lots of people don't get it. We don't have the prosecutor here, and the other one, and many people don't get this. That you can't have a place living Jews when you can't there's no law and order. People think from people don't need law and order. You know what the Medrash says? In the Midbar you need a shoftim. A shoitrim. Shoiter is a shoter, is a policeman. When I first time learned this Medrash, I said, what? my romantic feeling growing up in the mid, but everything was so nice and sweet, and no one argued. Shalom Bayis was like, everything went great. What do you mean? Man, you know what the Gemara says? I ever tell you that when Anna Cohen died, there's a medrash says, one of them says 3,000 Naharim followed the Oren, one of them says 30,000, and I think one of the medrash says 300,000. Why were they called Aaron? So when it says, Anna Cohen used to make shalom to husband and wife. So when the baby was born after the Shalom Bayis, they gave him the name after Aaron. If not you, we wouldn't have this child. Imagine. So I always tell people, when you if chas v'sholom by mistake you fight with your wife, you don't want anyone to know. You give the name Aaron. What's you saying Aaron? We were separated, and he made shalom. But the last thing you want anyone to know. Teretz is, they want to teach generations later, you can get into a fight with your wife, the will doesn't stop, you can make shalom, you can make up, don't get so carried away. But I remember learning the first time the Medrash about 20 years ago, I says, what? Somehow I had that fantasy, like there was great shalom bay. Medrash says they needed shoitrim, police. It's very important. You can't have a society. I predicted, I said it to people, on May Shiurim, there was a kufa. Someone told me I have the Gabber in my shul, Moshe Vidas, is from there, and they didn't let the police in. I told them, you don't let the police in, they're going to kill each other. Ish es re'ayim chaim b'luah. It's exactly what happened. Then they started fighting among themselves, and they were burned. There was a guy who was charged for murder. You follow the Israeli news? It's hard. You know such a thing. Can't have a Haredi community say, we don't need a police. So in America, we don't have koyach this. If someone hits you, you call the police. Someone robs a bank. In Lakewood had a bocher who robbed the store. Someone asked me, someone gave him to police. Said the biggest thing he did. You can't have law and order if you can't have a police. So they have different. I don't know if your history, the Ashkenazim were the ghettos, and the government gave him the koyach, gave him the power. So the Zayin Tiva, if someone misbehaved, and it was a robber, it was whatever he did, the guy, who's going to arrest a rapist, and who, what, when? Always, there's a Yiddish saying, just like there's every box of apples, there's for photo apples, there's every place there is, in Yiddish there's a saying, every kehillah has its genuvim and mishiguim. We don't have to borrow from each other. We have our own, Baruch Hashem. I don't have to go to the East Coast and borrow. We have our own mishiguim, our own genuvim. That's part of a society. So they had, the Zayin Tiva had this koyach. He says, Api shesh cholkim, si kech biyad tiva be'ele rak la'achrich tziva ma'ashu yiminik mekoidem. Some hold, no. They cannot do the Zayin Tiva. Some of the Zayin Tiva can only do what minhugim, what was established, just because they see one guy's a nutnik and one guy does. He says, Oishikib alei medas kilam. But after we can, he says, then he says, let me explain this line. This is very much the Geya. I don't know if you paid attention to the news. I only know about it. Someone told me about this. There was a while in America, it's still going on. Let's say a city decides they want to put up a Walmart. Walmart is called? Walmart.
Eminent domain.
So eminent domain is something they for a street but they decided, I want to put in a Walmart, and I want you to sell your house. But this was a big fight, went to the Supreme Court. You know about this case? And in a few smaller cities, what happened is that the council of the city decided, you need a Walmart, can't have it al-chitz l'tchum. We'll force the people of this neighborhood, get for the right price the houses, and build a Walmart. It was a Walmart case, but other times it was other. So there was a few people refused. I'm not interested. Give me $10 million. It's my house. So it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court passed, and they have a right to cities. It was shocking. This is what the Elchonon says over here. We can't make something ravcha lahai ipsei de lahai. Just because, even though you think it's better for the community, you make more money, that means people can make money, and this guy should lose his house. You can't do such a thing. Now there's a long Pesach Tshuva, and we don't have time to read it inside. Let me explain to you an interesting fact what happened. when a guy prints, this is the guy in Lubavitch. I don't know if you know that the Lubavitch feels, how would I say that? They have the right, the only ones who write the Shulchan Aruch, print the Shulchan Aruch. And there was a company, Oiz Yehuda, the Oiz Yehuda Gemaras. The first thing they printed was a Shulchan Aruch. They fixed the mistakes. And you know about this? You guys don't know? So it's Oiz Yehuda, new Gemaras, all the new Gemaras. You know, we're talking about these new Shas that you just saw over here.
So we get the art scroll, so we don't know about.
Yeah, the art scroll uses Oiz Yehuda print.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Oiz Yehuda, from the first thing when they got organized, is they printed the Shulchan Aruch. All due respect to Chabad, it was very frustrating, but there was a lot of tools for them and no one worked on it. So they did it. And they were furious, they were going to take him to, I think they tried to take him to court, they didn't win. They prepared themselves well enough ahead why they could do it. Anyways, so the emissaries, they have no right. You know what I mean? Anyone has a right to print anything he wants. What was the problem? The problem was in the times of the Gemara, times of the first print, a guy prints a Gemara, and it cost a lot of money. A lot of money. Then another guy prints it, and the first better print, and the first one, all this printed that he stored there, starting trying to sell for the next 10 years, he loses all the money. So, too bad. In America we say business, too bad. But we want people to print Svarim. So there's no such a thing, I'm not allowed to print. You know, that's business. You didn't print such a good, nice Shas. I came up with a better Shas. Too bad. That's what really happened. What happened was the Rambam was printed, one of the first print they printed was the Rambam. Do you know about the first thing they printed? When the printing came out? No, first Goyish Sefer was the Bible. Do you know about the second thing they printed? Pornography. Imagine. First the Bible, second. What Havdol? Yeah, same, I would tell people the world is the same. Same way it's was then, same way it's now. People think the world was crazy, no, the same craziness. They're the same. Anyways, what happened was when they printed the first Rambam, quickly say, the Rambam, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Maram Padva, he printed the Rambam with the Perish on the Rambam. So now people didn't buy the first Rambam. Of a Perish, and he lost a lot of money. So if you notice, they made it, there's nothing you could do up here, Halacha. So what did they do? When they printed it, they wrote a Chayrim inside. You see the old Svarim, Chayrim Kadmoinim, you see the Skuma, even on the Alter Rebbe's Skuma on the Tanya. Yeah, it says 10 years, a Chayrim, no one's allowed to print it.
If it's a break of 5 years or more, then you can print it. If not, no one can ever print it.
No, it says a Chayrim, 10 years.
No, there's a Chayrim that if the time won't be printed for 5 years or more, then you can print it. And if not, it cannot be printed.
No, the first Skuma is from the Gedol.
The first, but the Zushman, he followed with all the Haskamas now.
Yeah. The bottom line is what it was because otherwise people would not print. If there's no Chayrim, then if I cannot guarantee them get my money back, who's going to print? What happened was, they printed a Gemara, I think it was, it doesn't say if I remember the what, and another guy went and printed, and sold it. So this, the Gedolim of that city, imagine, the city where it was printed, put out a psak, no one is allowed to use the Gemaras. The ones who bought it.
Okay.
So the HalachaSrs15, I think it's the HalachaSrs15, was a good lord. No, Zichron Yosef. Zichron Yosef was also a good lord. His time, he was before the Magen Avraham. So he was the good lord, and they asked him, and he writes, and he quotes this in Ramah. There's no such a thing. It means the guy shouldn't have printed it. He was over Chayrim. That could be. We're not talking about him. Now I bought it, not realizing it. People didn't think people knew the internet, checked into Google the name. Well, no one until news got. So he bought the Gemaras. A lot of people. Then he realized it was over the Chayrim. You cannot tell us Rav Chalahai say the Lahai. We shouldn't use the Gemaras till he guy sells it. So that's what the Zichron Yosef said. That's exactly what the Ramah says over here.
I remember some years ago in Chicago, I don't know if it's exactly the same type of case, but there were used to be that there was a handful of Jewish stores like the La Brea market types that sold all the kosher meat. Then the supermarket, like the Ralph's over there, it was Osco, decided they wanted to get in on the, the Jewish meat business. They were selling meat, and I remember I had a friend that was working there. He said that the Jewish stores were making such crazy markups. It was very easy for the supermarket to offer the meat 20-25% cheaper than what the kosher stores were selling it for. So the CRC put out a letter to the whole community. You're not allowed to buy meat, kosher meat at the supermarket chain. You have to buy it only from the kosher store. It sounds kind of like a similar idea.
No. That's what we have the problem now with community over here. The so-called RC, not the what is it called, RCC over here wants to give us Shguch on Ralph's on 3rd.
Right.
And I said publicly in Shul that they're doing a terrible avla, because what happened if it's not true what you're saying, it's so much that then you're allowed to buy from them. You're mechuyev to support the Jewish business. But if their market is so high up, then to the 6th you have to pay more. A shtus, you know what a shtus is? Shtus is about 16th approximately. So that means more, but more you're not mechuyev. You have to support the Jewish people. But that's totally something. They made such a decree, I probably meant to say you have to support the Jewish stores. But if it's such a markup, there's 25% more, people do have a right to buy. Bezdin cannot say exactly what you're saying. You can't say because these are going to lose money. Why shouldn't we buy the meat that's cheaper? Probably they wrote another thing, that you got to support the local business. But if, let's say, they decide, even though it's more, they can't decide for us. It's a loss for us. You understand what Daniel is saying? What you're saying is that's the truth. We cannot tell you guys, don't buy from the supermarket, let's say where the halacha allows you to buy, just because we want to save these people. Unless these people are going to go out of business if they would sell at the same price as the supermarket. See, the supermarket could afford to sell certain things. The Chofetz Chaim says, the supermarkets take things that it's a great loss, but at least you come into the store. It's called leaders.
Right.
And then they close the competition. Then they jack it up. They do it all the time. I have a guy in my community. He owned a big lumber yard, and when what is it called? These big lumber yards. These Home Depot opened. At first, it was cheaper than he could. He couldn't afford it. But then once all the small guys were gone, Home Depot's back up. Okay, but this is important halacha that Shiva Tivui cannot decide, even though they think that it's good for the community, that someone should lose money on their chelik. That's not right.
Is there a standard amount of years, like 10 years?
They had a standard time of 10 years. Yeah, but there's no. That's why you're allowed to print. That's why you're allowed to print any sefer al pi halacha. You're not babos of the sefer. Many people used to try to think.
The timing was different. The timing was because people purposely printed it wrong, so people should suspect that Hasidim are trying advocating to do it.
Well, that could be. But I'm just saying any Gemara, that's all these things. So you can't. There's no such thing. You have a copyright on it. There's no change copyright,
One second, so anybody can take, the art school shots and copy it over and print them in their own name?
Well, it says, they now changed the nusach. Originally it says no copyright, you're allowed to copyright it. You can't sell me something you're not allowed to copyright. We spoke about this a few times, it's a long discussion. But that's another thing. They have a right to sell you something. I'm asked not to copy it. There's such a concept. But I give you Moshe the Shulchan Aruch. They printed it. They're printing it now again. The middle of those who spring the Shulchan Aruch with the Madam McCombs with the Chroinim arguing, and they're working on this. There's no one could say you're not allowed to do that.
That's different than let's say I took the Shulchan Aruch and put it in a special format. That was like my original cop, whatever. For someone else to just take my exact thing and then just reprint it under their own brand.
Well, it's very hard to say it's asa. The only reason it should be asa is because if you work so hard, then you're going to lose money on it. It's like not yoshir. There's such a concept. But let's say you're not doing it anymore. I don't know, when the Oz Yehuda printed the Shulchan Aruch, there was an uproar, Chabad. I don't know if you remember this. It was an uproar. They were going to take him to Bezdin. And because there was not Chabad who printed it. They felt that, Halacha, there's no such a thing. See, this Levine, who redid it, whoever this guy Levine is his name, the new Shulchan Aruch. Okay, he put a lot of work on it, and the guy who's going to copy his work, it's not Bedin, it's not Yosher. This is Halacha Shulchan Aruch. He probably invested a lot of money, a lot of hours of work. What? Well, it's a lot of time he invested. There's.
So in such a case, then you could say that what?
It's not Bedin that someone should make money over him. He makes money on this now, or what?
He's a librarian. It's fun on the whole day. He didn't make money on that either.
But theoretically, he got paid to do it.
He didn't get paid to do it.
There's a few mistakes, so I send them. I got a little bit annoyed. What did you say? Yeah, no, I asked someone to explain to him. That's it. He did a good job. He did a very, very good job. Anyways, a lot of people don't know there was a lot of mistakes in the Shulchan Aruch. And there's a lot of pieces taken out from the censors and no one bothered to put it back in. So that's what Oz Yehuda did. The Chabad was printing the Shulchan Aruch with the censor taken, didn't put it back in. So Oz Yehuda, one of the things, he brought everything back in and said, now where he printed, he also brought it back in. Did you know the pieces missing in Shulchan Aruch? No, but in the Shulchan Aruch, there's a few pieces literally missing because of the censors, talking about Genevis Hakim, talking about Tuas Hakim. There's a famous piece that, how did I first know? 35 years ago, more than about, I saw someone brings down the Shulchan Aruch holds there's no din shoish lamadas by goy. There's no din, goy is a din shoish lamadas, but you know what shoish lamadas means? Can I use your object without your permission? I'm not allowed to use your object without your permission. Even for a minute. The Shiva Bacham was have the question, can I use my head to brush up my roommate? So the Shulchan Aruch holds there's no din shoish lamadas by goy. I was looking all over and he says where it is. There's no such a thing. So I went to Rabbi Shulchan over here and I asked him, do you know where this is? He says he thinks that these are from the Ishmatas. Where do you find the Ishmatas? He's told me that he has it as a print and he copied it for me from a different safer totally, and remember I photocopied it, the old photocopies, you know what I mean? Those. He knew where it was. He also it took him a while to find it. So then I realized there's a few places that way. So it was printed for years without changing. So that's always where it came. Just to know, it's good to know history, what happened over here. So, anyways, coming back. So this was based. The entire printing was based on this cinema. You cannot answer someone after it was printed for the buyers who bought it. You could tell the guy he's not allowed to sell it. You tell the people not to buy it. He was over the chayrim. But once it was bought, they had no idea what they're doing. There's no issue whatsoever. Okay. He says, but he says if the minig was that when they set up the city, they say we have a right to do this, then they have a right to do this. You understand what he's saying? What happens when they set up the city, the committee, they made how's it called, bylaws? Bylaws. And the bylaws says the city has a right to do it. Yes, if it's written in the city, and you came to live, you came to live, knowing that this could happen. So they could tell you, you must sell your house, we want to build a Kmart over here, or whatever store we want to build over here. Okay. I'm here today. You know, they had special charumais to enforce laws. You know, we're not aware about this, but those days they had, let's say no one's allowed to sell meat besides the butcher, you can't bring in meat from outside. There were a lot of serious problems they had. And one of the big fights with the Chassidim, not just Chabad or Chassidim, was they held that you're not to make a new minyan a different nisach. You're over the Chaydim. And if you know, that was the big fights. When the Chassidim came and they wanted to have a different nisach, so part of them, if you ever read history, they scream, well, what's your business by Davin which way? No, but there was a tkuna. But the city, you shouldn't change the nusach. That's what they claimed, or something like that. So the Kosya Chroini, which you say, the mission is Yasher, mission is Chayv Malkus. The guy is Chayv Malkus, Yiten Albun Zehiven, Bomoka Malkus. Get for the Zehiven, Salal Mani Valav, Dini Kumeleshum, Pascal Fishu. Biyat Abezen Lal Koisoi to give a Malkus. A little moment can feed us a name for Inyan Lamigda Milsa. Bezen has a right. The Migdal Milsa, you know the Chassam Sofer, let me just tell you Chassam Sofer, there was a very wealthy lady in Pressburg who decided that she's not going to wear a shekel, wear her own hair. It was unheard of. The Hungarians were very sneezed. It was unheard that, someone should walk around. So the Chassam Sofer told the Chevra Kedisha when the Levaya of her lady would be, that he wants to go to the Levaya. So he came to the Levaya, and the Sefer came with the Chevra Kedisha, told him to open the Oren, and he told him to take the face off the tachricha from the lady, and take the hair and shove her into her mouth, her long hair. I think some Sefer. The Ma'ishmi, the whole town was, because Bezdin has a koich to even fames. I mean, just, whatever it was, that doesn't have a koyach to do this. Okay. That's the Simon Gimel. Now, let me explain Simon Gimel introduction. How, let's say, we don't have a Bezdin Kvu in the city, okay? So 3 Rebbonim call you to Din Torah. Do you have to respond or not? So this is the koyach of a Bezdin. So, we don't need Bezdin. We need Bezdin. Let me explain something. The whole thing a little bit confusing, so let me try to make it clear. We need a Bezdin Kivi in a city that could force you to come no matter what. But if there is no Bezdin Kivi in the city, any 3 people can send Azmona. Reuven is calling you to Din Torah. Like, so we don't have a Bezdin Kivi, so you could take 3 people, write a summons. The guy either comes to you or chooses another Bezdin. But that's an official summons. So we have lost all the koyach. People are afraid to put into people to chayrim. And if a guy didn't go, you put him into chayrim. See, there has to be a way of law and order to go to Bezdin. See, here we obligated a pitoid to go to Jewish Bezdin. So now, let me explain an interesting thing. In Lakewood, there was an interesting story. There was the Mashgiach of Lakewood called Matasiu Salomon, famous speaker. So there was a school, a preschool, and there was rumors that the husband of this lady molested the children. And he closed the school down. Or he wrote a letter, no one should send the children to school, that's all you need in Lakewood, and finish. So he wanted to take him to Din Torah, no one, Rabbi Matusan.
The husband wanted to take Matusan.
No one, he sent us one. So he found 3 Yidden who sent them as Muna. So the Chazon Ish talks about this. Why do I have to respond to these 3 people? Chazon Ish happens to write about this. This happened 2 years ago. Chazon Ish is not alive since Tufshi Yidalad. So the Chazon Ish has this whole piece. Any 3 people could call someone to Din Torah. It sounds ridiculous. They could. Then 3 people could turn over the world. And he says it has to be people who are recognized as Tamid Chachamim. The Nochesh Mishpit. There has to be someone. I mean, that's when you have to respond. Because 3 Yoshua Kunos going to call you and I'm going to go there. What, you know something? What do you know? So he says it has to be. So it's very interesting. He's troubled how this works exactly, but it has to be. You can't just 3 people call him to the Torah. I mean,
who gets to certify who's the?
Well, really, if he wants to do, the question doesn't have to. He doesn't have to respond to them. He could say, "I want another Bezdin," or "I want a Zavlua," and he could respond to them. I don't know why he didn't go to the Torah. There's nothing to be afraid of. Because there's rumors, and L'meichesh mi'boya. I'm sorry. I'm sure they looked into it, not because rumors, sometimes rumors nothing in the turn. I always tell people the famous rumor. There was a lady who was screaming at the top of her lungs and was holding the shirt of the rapist. Rapist! Most people would believe her, right? The lady screaming, rapist. And that was Eshes Patifera. She was the one who initiated it. And she was screaming, rapist. And they all, the Medrash they really believed her. The only reason is her boss didn't believe her. He knew who his wife was and he knew Yosef was. The Medrash. But I'm saying that, rumors is, you could kill people. Do you know what the Nazis did with rumors? Anyone who's a child of Holocaust survivors over here? You know what the Nazis did? The Nazis they came into towns in Poland in the beginning, and they sent out a rumor that everyone's going to Palestine. We're not killing anyone. And people started believing the rumors. They came out of hiding. That's the beginning. That's how he got people to come out of hiding. Nothing to be afraid of. It's not true. Why should you want to kill you? We're sending you to Palestine for free. And people bought it, lied it, and that's how you killed them. With a rumor, you could kill people. That's how I tell people. But anyway, so en bezn puchas mishloisha, chashloish nikulu bezn filet yoitis. We were simple people. Why? The efshe, the lesbe chad, the idei svuris bedinim. One of them knows the dinim. One of them knows the dinim. Aber lesbe chad yude psila the din. If one of them three doesn't even know din, he's possible. They can accept the tanas. Let's say there's no bezin over here. They could say, you know what? We can accept the argument and we'll send it to a bezin. They should pass it first.
What does that mean? It always has to be three?
It has to be three.
But is that in order to
force a guy? You're right. Behen.
If two guys, if me and Yoni are in a dispute, we want to just go to a rabbi.
Listen. When two people agree, they could agree by flipping a coin too. If you disagree with him and you say, you know what, let's flip a coin. If it's heads, you win. If it's tails, you win. And we have no problem with that. We have a problem when you guys don't agree. And then Torah is always, I don't want to go, I don't owe you the money, you owe me the money.
You pick one, I pick one.
No, one second, that's the next case. But I'm just saying, but when the whole concept of the bezin, when the two of you don't agree, you have siksach, you get guy screams, you owe me the money, you say, I don't owe you the money.
Right.
So,
but in such a case, they could still agree to go to one person.
They could, whatever they want, they could agree.
And is that binding?
Yeah, if they make a kinyan and they make a shtur b'rira, it's binding that.
One rub versus three rub.
I was sat at a. Do you want to just close this? I don't know. That you have to give the shul. That's sold by the shul. Yeah, but if it's like you by the mishaberich, you also pledge on mishaberich over here. It works the same way. So when you pledge mishaberich, you can give it to any. But I pledge to give tzedakah, even though I thought of mine to give it to this Chabad, I give it to Chabad. I can give it to non-Chabad. I give it to anti-Chabad. Yeah. Yeah, that's an issue about tzedakah. I said I have to give it, but Mechates have to give it to you. I said I'm going to give it.
So you can take one pushka and just pour it into another.
Yeah, don't tell us anyone the secret. Certain secrets you're not saying. Most people don't know this. But don't tell anyone.
I don't think the guys that empty the pushkas know this. I have a feeling.
Like he's saying the giver gets to do it. Right. You can't. The receiver doesn't get to pick and choose.
That's true. That is true. You're right. He's right what he just said. The giver has a right, but once he put into the pushka, it was koina. The kelim was koina. He actually put into Chabad pushka. And so that keli was koina. It was keli. That's a whole different story. Okay. Anyway, so three people could call someone to the Torah. And could judge a person about korchoi. If he doesn't want to come to din, he could pass him about korchoi. Doesn't want to come to it. Now, this is a big question in the Achronim. What does that mean, you judge him about korchoi? How do you know his side of the story?
Well, that's what happens in a secular court. So what?
The secular works. Yeah, it's about.
They give a judgment against it.
Yeah, I was at fault. Baruch Hashem, the only time it happened. I banged into a lady's car.
Yeah.
And, I don't know why the Shiurim didn't want to settle, so I went to court. She didn't show up. The judge told me, I was honest. People told me you're going to be at fault. If I'm at fault, I'm at fault. I said the honest truth is that, the way I turned and, I don't go into detail, but the bottom line is she didn't show up in court. The judge says she didn't show up in court. I'm awarding you $1,000.
You want $1,000.
Ich habe noch gewonnen 1,000. I mamish smashed the car into. I told her my car didn't have that. Yes.
So one second, so why shouldn't the Bezdin be the same way?
Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. We're not talking about the Bezdin should be that can make knuses over here. He doesn't show up. It's a big machlik. Someone will say what you say. Someone will say this is the thing. Some learn differently. He says, I'm going to say my story, but I'm not interested in listening to them. And then Bezdin could give a psak even though he doesn't want. A guy came to Mechol Neruah, an Oibechochem, and he says, I'm not signing Shtuda Barira. But he said, I'll say my side of the story. He said his side of the story. You lost it in Torah. So the Bezdin gave a psak. So they tell me, Mechol Neruah tells me, it's an altar roof, called them up, screaming at them. He never signed Shtuda Barira. So he said to them, Rabbi, did you learn the Mechaber over here? Mechaber says very clearly that you could judge Bar Korchoy. Now there's a machlokes, but when he says his side of the story, for sure you could. The question in the Chaydim is like someone says he didn't say his side, he refuses to come, can we judge Bar Korchoy? But if he said his side of the story, well, nothing can judge Bar Korchoy. So Amroi Tzelud Imoy Be'ir, Iroi, Elishen Chufetz B'shloish Shibir HaTeveya, Al Zeh Boyer Lecha, Zeh Boyer Lecha. This is the famous, everyone chooses one Dayan. You know what that means? Each chooses one, the two Dayanim choose a third. Now I want to tell you something, there's a big, Achronim all scream about it, that it became very corrupt, the Zavlua. Extremely corrupt. I don't sit anymore with Zavlua. Right, because what happened was, I have a few times already, it's not shot they're coming, and if they see the other guy's wrong, they tell him. Or I tell you a simple case. The first time I was astounded. This guy chose one, and I was the middle one. So what happened was the guy moved an apartment, and the window cracked, and the balabos didn't fix the window for 3 months. So the guy didn't pay 3 months rent. So he came to the Torah. I said to him, 3 months you didn't pay because the window. Let's say you couldn't use the room. But so far he used the room. Let's say he did because he couldn't. So you give, instead of 3 bedroom, 2 bedroom you pay him. Or you take the money, fix the window, you pay less. What do you mean you don't pay rent? So the Dayan who was sticking up for him came with, he didn't want to hear such a thing. I said, well, what are you talking about over here? The only reason there was a psak, because we write in the Shiurim, 2 out of 3, he didn't want to even sign the psak. Of course he has to pay rent. It became corrupt. You understand? It's not that he's going to. It's not that he's going to try to fight for him. He's right no matter what.
Wow.
In his eyes, the guy who picked him is going to be right no matter what. That's the corruption.
Like a time, basically.
Yeah, like a time. It became terrible this way. The Paiskim say it's not a good. That's why That's why you can't, a guy says, one of the famous cases with the foster get, one of the famous question was, he said he doesn't want to go, someone told me it's related to you, this Deutsch, the story with the girl. So he didn't want to go to a Zavlua. He said, go to any Bezdin that you choose. This happens a lot, not just by get. And I says, I'm not interested in the Zavlua. The older person say, you have a right to say such a thing. I don't want to go Zavlua corrupt. Because really, the whole psak is going to be on one person. You understand what it means? What happened today is, a Zavlua means that there's 2 things that happen. First of all,
it's saying that the Zavlua concept is there only to satisfy the
both stodim.
Yeah, being able to.
But I have to be honest. But if he sees he's wrong, you represent someone and you see he's totally wrong, you have to say he's wrong.
So let's go back for a second. In a city where there's a Bezdin Kavua, that they're the Bezdin of the city, so then you have to go, right?
That's what the Amos says later. Not only dafke, but the unit she'eni kavua, says the Ramah. Of the yonim kavua be'ir, That means if there's a Bezdin Kavua in the city, you can't demand a Zeboyer. So really, there's no Bezdin Kavua. A person has a right to demand a Zavlua.
Right.
But the Pesachim say, the Rabbi Yashu Shiurim wrote a tshuva, and the Debet's in the roof, and the Rav Osnu Zanzang is interested, all universal right, that today became a corrupt thing.
So therefore,
I have a right to say, I don't want to have Zavlua. You choose a neutral Bezdin. Three people.
So the guy chooses.
Not you.
Let's say the
That's-
case of the Chabadnik who goes and chooses the three Chabad rabbis. The non-Chabadnik can say, hey, I don't think they're going to be neutral.
Yeah, he has a
I
right
wanna
to
go
say that.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right? And he can do that.
He says, let's go to a different Bezdin. Right? But that's where the big fights come up. I only
In
wanted.
general, if you get called to a din Torah of 3 Dayanim, even if they're Talmidei Chachamim, the other party can say, hey, I'm not comfortable with those guys.
Right. You have a right to say either Zavlua, if you find honest Zavlua,
Right.
or I don't want to go to that Bezdin. But we're going to end later. You can't tell me to go to New York.
Stick to the city.
Stick to the city. Unless you go to New York a lot of times. But I don't know about that. But I could tell to you.
In a city like Los Angeles, how many Bezdins are there?
There's not too many.
Plenty compared to.
Meaning if
No.
it's not Kehillah and it's not the RCC, then what else is there?
Yeah, there are people who would sit. I've put together Bezdin. Put together Bezdin from time to time.
Together Bezdin is not a kavua, so then again it's...
We don't have a Bezdin Kavua. Nothing is Kavua. RCC is a business. You can't go to Bezdin today unless it's a $50,000 case. Because
RCC is the closest to a Kavua that we have, right?
no. It's a business. It's a strict business. Nothing to do Kavua. It's not Kavua because if you have a $5,000 case, there's nothing to go. It went up to $200. Someone told me to send out a summons. $225. I think this guy told me. So if I want to have a $5,000 case, so most often people don't respond to the third asmana, so it's going to cost me already almost $1,000 just to send summons out.
No, they don't charge any time to $200.
That's what someone told me. They went up. No? So someone just recently told me.
Understood, man.
But before you start, they charge $300.
$5 per hour that they charge.
Yeah. Yeah. So for each one, $75 an hour.
No, $75 has one for
Ah. But I think for each one of them, I think it's $100 an hour. I forget how much. Before you start, just to sit each hour will cost you $100. Now, I'm not blaming the Dayanim. I don't like to sit in the Torahs for this reason because it's I told you already. What's the reason we take money is because we have to listen to all your stomach aches.
Or your shrink.
Yes. Yeah, we have to listen, the ganze history, how good he was and how not fair he was, and I helped him when he was a single bacher, and I even tried a shidduch for him. What does that have to do with 30 years later? I don't know. But we have to be patient and listen. Otherwise, the guy's going to say, Bez didn't listen to me. I mean,
From communities today, like Mersham, Neighbor.
Yerushalayim has a badatz. That's the best in Kavua. They don't charge money.
And those are only 3 people that sit. And
They have a rotation a lot. They have a big bezdin now a lot. You don't even know who's going to sit, and they don't even know who's coming. That's why Yerushalayim is very good. They have no idea. They give you there's a guy who gets paid, and there's the masker, and you come. You don't even know who's going to be under who the Dayanim is going to be.
Do they expect a tip at least? Or you just go for
I don't know
free?
how it works. I don't know how it works.
Government pays.
Government pays for the badatz, yeah?
Doesn't mean we don't expect a tip, so much of that.
No, you're not allowed to tip the Dayan. You're not allowed to.
It's good service, 15%.
Okay. There's another thing, a story there was a guy who was called to Bezdin, and also a divorced. The guy said, you know what, I don't mind going to that Bezdin. I want the Bezdin should be 5 people instead of 3 Dayanim. Says the Shiurim, it's okay. Says in the Pischut Tshuva, it says that's okay. He's right to say that.
That's a good idea.
No.
it needs to be 3 to 2.
Zit die Machaber warte. Puchas b'shloisha, ain't den Eide. Less than 3 is not a din. A fileloi tui. Did not make a mistake. Eilein kable baladinan. They were made a kabudas kinyan. They accepted that they should be the Dayanim. Oy shimum chalarabim. Mum chalarabim means, the Rabbi said, he knows chosh mishpat backwards and forwards. And we know that he was tested, and many people see clearly, he has a clear, see chosh mishpat is not, first you got to know it, and second you have to know how to compare things. Very often many people don't know how to compare things, apples and oranges, like, you know. So Muncha means that he knows it, and we saw that he has a very clear way of thinking. He says, we don't have this to force someone to come to Dayanim. 2 people could ask a dying to Paskin. But one person cannot force. Say, the Moshe Feinstein, who's, I think anyone in this generation knew it, the Buddhism, the Chosh Mishpat as well, he did, couldn't tell a person forcing you to come to the Torah. That's what the Rambam is saying. If it's not 3 people, if you want to come to him, it's a separate issue. But to force a guy, you can't force. What do you say? Even a smuchem Eretz Yisrael, if it's not 3, let me explain this concept. Let me tell you a story to explain this concept. There's a din of Chosh Mishpat in Hilchos Toyin Menitan. Toyin, you can't be Toyin Achatoyin. Let me explain what that means. There was a case in the community. A guy called a guy to the Torah, and he lost. After he lost, I always tell people, the one who wins it in Torah says that they're Yonam Tzadikim, Kedosh Elyon. The one who loses it in Torah, they have interveldings, mafiosa, they were bribed. You know what I mean? They're the worst of the worst. So, human nature is. So he lost it in Torah, and he came back, and he said that he's not a Baldin. He's not the Baldin. He was a shliach from someone else. Yeah. The money wasn't his money. He was a shliach from a guy from Chicago. That's called Toyen v'choyzev Toyen. You know what that means? When you called it in Toyen, he could have said right away, what do you want from me? I'm just an emissary, the citizen, how you say citizen, the agent. I'm just an agent. What do you want from me? That's not. The whole time he was arguing the case, and then he knows that the case says, the money comes from Chicago, a very wealthy person, and they go. That's called Toyen. You understand why it's called Toyen v'choyzev Toyen? You lost it in Torah. Now you can a new thing, which is how you say discrepancy. You say a stira to them. That's called Torah. You can't do that. So if a guy is outside the Bezdin one story, comes to Bezdin and changes the whole story. Do you know what it says? People do it all the time. They don't want people to know what his story is. That's okay. But if you say in front of these people who are pi halacha, they were not allowed to call you to the Torah but force you to come, and you said one argument, and finally you come to Bezdin, which is a kosher Bezdin, you argue differently, it's okay. Because it's not called Toim Choyzev Toim. That's what he's saying.
Outside of basically lying. No.
Yeah, yes, outside of Bezdin, he doesn't want to say. A person, not saying if you're L'Shem Yicha to lie, but the people don't want to say the story, and outside the Bezdin they will say a different story.
And then they come to business.
Say the truth, right? I've said it in Torah, and a guy brought in a guy that he told him the story differently. He thought that he's winning the case. So a guy told me, and I asked the lawyer, he told me even the secular courts, there's no lawyer in the secular, whatever you say outside of court means nothing. Even today, means nothing. That's what. Yeah, that's it. Even if you said it, if we have a tape, what you said, nothing to do. I told the guy the story. You come into court, because sometimes people, they don't want to say the truth, and in court they'll say the truth. I mean, that's what it says. The person sometimes outside the court doesn't want the guy to, find ways to lie, when you confront it. Okay. He says, Shetana b'fneim, v'koife b'fneim, achach bu eiden lo hichze kafren. What happens? He said the story, and then 2-3 people come. What do you mean? You paid that? You paid the money? Or you mean we saw? You were not even in town to pay the money, whatever. But once you have 3, and you didn't want to go to Bezdin, we call you to Bezdin. You came. That's what I just said. If he lied in front of the 3, that means he came to Bezdin and he lied, and we bring Edis that you're a liar. It's called Hirze Kafran. Yeah. We're going to learn a whole sugya later. That means once a guy is muchzik, that is a liar, then the next, anytime he has the Torah, is Yudal Techtoina. The other person swears and takes money. Hirze Kafran means a guy is muchzik. The simple case the Gemara gives, I gave him to watch my cuss, and he said it got lost. And 2 Eidim come. When he got lost, it was sitting in your shiny closet, used every Shabbos. It's a very nice Kiddush Becha. You fell in love with it. Hirze Kafran. Every time he has a din Torah, he's in trouble. Because if they make the other one swear and collect the money. Called Hirze Kafran.
3 of those instances are...
One time.
Oh, one time. So what did you say about 3?
Who has to swear?
3 Dayanim.
Oh,
And once a guy is Hirze Kafran,
it's certified.
is certified, so next time he has the din Torah, we don't trust him.
You could bring the...
Well, we don't trust the other guy neither.
So what do?
So he has to swear.
Which one?
The one who's going to collect the money from him. This Reuven was Hirze Kafran. Now Reuven has the din Torah with you. Now, wait a minute, everyone's going to take advantage of it. He's Hirze Kafran.
Right.
You have to swear, and swear that I said that he owes you the money.
But then you get it.
Then you get it.
What if the other way around? Let's say the cop is trying to get money out of someone else.
Same thing. It's a big problem. You can't trust them.
All right, swears against it.
It's a whole simon, a whole sugi we'll learn later. Hilchos Shavuos. Hirze Kafran. Okay. So the Gemara says, it's a Gemara. It's a machlokes in the Gemara, machlokes how we paskin. The Gemara is yachze shvur, something like this. So the Gemara is a machlokes. One says it means yachze l'har Sinai. Then let the Rabbi Shalom take care of this. We can't do it. Some say no. So we go back to the original guy who had to swear. Since he cannot swear, the other one collects his money. There's a cloud. A guy is chai shvur and he doesn't swear, he pays. Either you swear or you pay. So, well, so we can't learn HalachaSrs15 one day. We have to shine. Hopefully we'll get there one day. So the Mechaber Af b'shiyuch mincha l'rab mitzvahs ludi yichidim mitzvahs chachomim shiyoshiv ma'acherim. I want to tell you something. It's very, very true. You sit alone. You sit with more people. Any time I sit in the Bezdin, it's always a geschmack to have more people because you get a clearer picture. The whole story comes out when people ask questions and it comes out much clearer. Okay. It's not another Mechaber. Afa pi shebezdin sheshloish shebezdin shulami kol zman shen rabim reizim b'shubuch. The more you add, the more the merrier, as we say. Emitiv she'achtadim b'yid aleph b'ba'asura. You can't have in Bezin Amaratzim sitting there. Amaratzim could confuse you very much. It's very interesting. It really is. I watch this. That sometimes you are sitting in Torah people, and sometimes they ask other people, don't know look and they them a cup and become so insecure about it. Says don't have not to meet a human there because they could confuse you. Kol shiyoshim tzurich shekol yoshim es tamichom v'rir v'usel udam ludam v'usel u'nchochan yeshivin at sheyedim mi yeshiv. Tam chochem should not sit in Torah unless he knows who the 2 other people is going to sit. Shema yeshiv amnu shenegina. Nimus chal keshi bogdem. You don't say that's a Gemara. A Talmud Chochem should know before he commits himself to sitting in Torah who are the other 2 people. Because it's very often the corrupt people.
They'll win 2 against 1.
And there are people who are corrupt.
Well, ignorant.
But in the Zabula, usually they don't.
Usually doesn't have a problem. But you want me to, even when I did, I never do it anymore. When I did have Zavlu, I tried to be careful who's coming. Our Zavlu people are very elach. I'll tell you, this Bogomilsky is very eloquent. You know, I sat with the Tauber and the guy was losing, and he was eloquent. I've sat with other ones, I don't say the names, were corrupt. I had a guy come from New York, he was a toyin and was screaming. So I told him, Rabbi, leave the Bezdin. What do you mean I came from New York? I don't care if you came from the moon. I mean, you don't scream here. And if you don't want to leave, I am leaving. You know, they have this chutzpah, like, you know what I mean? Like, and for the record, I want to tell you something. The Yonim get very turned off when you have a dying toyin that's screaming. Because we don't fall for these tactics. They think that they're doing it not for the Dayanim, they're doing it for the guy hiding them, thinking, oh, he's a fighter. It's such a turn off for us. When a guy screams,
You don't need drama.
yeah, it just turns us off. If anything you want, we find charm in the dying, don't have a guy who screams.
The dad is usually quiet, he's just listening, no?
But we have to know what to listen. And a guy is screaming, you know, and one guy says something and the guy doesn't let him talk. So that's what happened. The guy was saying, didn't let him talk. So he said, you mean to say I wasted money coming from New York? No, it's not my business. Where are you coming from? You have to, you know, in the Rabbanut, in Eretz Yisrael, I watched it, they have a power to give sanctions. They gave a lawyer sanctions. He screamed. You know, Rabbanut, I was in Even Ezer, once wanted to watch how goes the Even Ezer, and there was a lawyer who just, I remember who, I think representing her, I remember who, but gave him 600 shkolim knas. This is 25 years ago. That's a lot of money. Yeah, they gave him 25 years ago, that was a lot of money, $600, 600 shkolim. But we can't do nothing. What could a bezdin do like this? In the court, there's such a thing. The judge could, contempt of court, throws you out, they put you into jail for a day. Okay. Okay, let's stop over here. This is a new thing. It starts a brand new topic over here.